Yeah, what's going on? It's your man Smoking No Joking with Big A. Now the question is, Big A, do you always just fry and bake and smoke and well, no, every now and then I eat something on the healthy side. Every now and then. Well, today we doing a baked salmon. And I'm gonna show you the technique I use for that. Now take a look here, right? This is a nice cut of salmon that I'm gonna use, and we gonna cut it into pieces, right? Well, fish in general is a very particular type of meat, and you want to really watch how you season it. Now, just like any seasoning, you could use your staples. You could sprinkle a little seasoning salt on there. You come over the top, right, if you want to. Put a little oregano, right? Some black pepper if you want. And then you can also use a red pepper. Well, for us, I'm going to do something a little bit different. So the next time you in the grocery store, I want you to take a moment. You can make life very easy for yourself. Sometimes I come home from work, I just need to season something, throw it in the oven, let it relax for a minute. I got stuff to do, put on some laundry, log into the computer. So I mean, for those people who just want to make it easy, take the time, look through the seasoning now, because you may surprise yourself. Take a look here. This is called Old Mill Creole seasoning. Let it focus in there for you, right? Now, for me, I spent a little time in New Orleans, so I understand the mixing of spices when it comes to this Creole seasoning. But I'm going to use this on top of this salmon here, and I'm going to come across it with a little bit of garlic powder, right? Take a look there. But here's my secret sauce. I'm going to make it a sesame tasting. I'm using some of this pure sesame oil, and I'm going to drizzle that over the top of this. But I also have one more ingredient as well as technique I'm gonna show you on how we gonna cook this salmon. Now remember, some fish, if you frying it, right, you wanna fry it just like you do any other fried meat. You wanna make sure it's fried all the way through. But when it comes to seafood and stuff like that, you also gotta make sure that it's cooked well enough so you don't get sick. I mean, it's just part of cooking any type of seafood. Well, salmon is a little particular because you don't wanna overcook it, but then you can't undercook it. So what I use is a method I call the wrap stack. Basically, you take that fish, you're gonna season it the way you want to, you're gonna let it lay in the seasonings for a minute, then you're gonna add a little butter. You know me and my butter, boy, I love me some butter. But once you put that butter in there, you're still gonna wrap it tight, and then you're gonna bake it, right? I'm gonna bake mine at about 350 for about half hour. Then I'm gonna unwrap it, and I'm gonna let it cook a little bit more for about 10 more minutes, because you don't want your salmon to dry out. Salmon should be moist to the fork, as they say. And when you see this come out, this is called sesame glazed salmon baked in the oven. That's what I'm gonna name this episode for y'all. Check this out. So take a look here at this salmon. I done hit it up with all of that Creole seasoning, right? I added a little bit of garlic powder. I also tossed some oregano up in there and some black pepper, right? But then there's that one more ingredient, and that's what we coming with. I want to give it a light sesame type flavor to it as well. Now that sesame is kind of strong, so you don't want to overdo it. Look how I did it here. See how I just lightly put some over the top of it? Because what's going to happen is once I lay that butter on top and we wrap it up tight, it's going to infuse itself into the meat. So again, my technique is be a little light when you're using that sesame oil, okay? It will flavor your fish. Now, take a look here. You see those two little pieces of butter? You see I got it in the heavy-duty aluminum foil. So once I'm done here and the oven is warming up, I'm going to wrap this up tight and seal in and lock in all that flavor. When we take it out and it's done cooking, this salmon is going to be moist. It's going to be flavorful. I'm talking fork, right? When you put your fork through it, you're supposed to be able to just put your fork right through that salmon and eat, right? But we also going to make sure it's cooked all the way through. That's what the sealing up tight and the melting of the butter is going to do with all that seasoning. And I did season it on both sides. So make sure you do that. Season it on both sides. Here's today's tips and tidbits. So when you're cooking fish, you want to make sure, again, that you are very specific on the way that you flavor it. Some people don't eat fish because they say it tastes fishy. Well, I'm saying you can season a piece of meat, whether it's fish, whether it's lamb, whether it's that gamey type of meat, right? Some deer or something like that, in a way that it doesn't take away from the flavor, it adds to the flavor. So when you season in salmon, there are so many ways. This is the first installment of me making salmon for you, and this is the baked salmon. I'm gonna show you when I do that blackened salmon. Ooh-wee! You about to be like, look here, man. We need to make that for the house. So right now, I'm about to seal this up tight. The last part of the tips and tidbits is salmon is supposed to be moist. I'm gonna do it over the stove for you one time so you can see that as well in a future episode. But for today's episode, we just baking it. We putting it in the oven. We gonna watch. Actually, I'm watching some Pro Bowl stuff, and then we gonna come back and see how it turned out. Tips and tidbits number 2. So you might be asking yourself, how long, how high of a temperature when you baking salmon? Well, I'm going to say it really depends on your method. Some people will bake their salmon in the oven and they're not covering it up. They're just putting it up in a roasting pan, right? They're going to season it. I use a temperature of 350. And if you do it the uncovered way, check it out because you don't want your salmon to dry out, right? So you might leave it up in there for a half hour at that temperature and then go ahead and check it and make sure it kind of cooks all the way through. Because I'm using a sealed wrap tight method, I got my oven preheated to 350. I put the salmon up in there, but I know it's sealed tight. So it's going to take a minute for it to kind of heat up and start cooking the salmon. So I'm gonna leave it up in there, 30, 45 minutes. Because what's gonna happen is because of the sealed tight, it's not gonna dry out. I have no concerns about this salmon drying out. So I'm just gonna let it cook. Now there is a such thing as overcooked fish, right? Where you try to cut into it and it's just falling all over the dang place, right? But in order to keep it kind of moist, I like to use that method of the sealed tight. Now, if you want anything moist in the oven, trust me on this. You seal it up tight and it will come out nice and moist and juicy for you. So as a last part of the cook, right? So we had it wrapped up tight. We making sure that salmon is nice and moist. So what I do is as I'm prepping the dishes, everything like that, I'll unwrap it just so that top layer kind of hardens up, right? But it's not going to be hard, meaning hard to the touch, to the taste of the fork. It's just going to harden up the meat and make sure that it's all stuck together. So I'm about to pull it out the oven. Oh yeah, as you can see. So that salmon is cooked, and I put this little fork here so you can see what I'm talking about. Salmon's supposed to be nice and easy to the fork, but not dried out. See that top skin there? That's not dried out. So we had all that butter, all that seasoning just cooking down inside this salmon. We about to eat it with a side of baked potato and vegetable. So this your man, Smoking No Joking with Big A. I want you to tune in. One of the episodes I'm so excited about bringing to you is when I do these honey glazed baby back ribs. They just gonna be tender and juicy. And then the honey glaze, I'm just gonna rub it up over the top, nice and gentle like this here. And when we cook those, I'm talking about we gonna have a feast.